I'm Edwin Samuelson, and welcome to the CineFiles, a show that allows you to eavesdrop on the conversation of fellow film fanatics. Today, we're going to be talking about the Terminator films. Yes, we're going to be talking about Terminator 1, 2, 3, and, of course, the last one, which was Salvation. But before I do, let me introduce our panel. To my left, Mr. Eric Cohen, and to his left, Michael Fultz. Now, guys, before we get into this, let's tell everybody again about the CineFiles blog and the Facebook discussion page. And, of course, let's tell everyone who needs to go to our YouTube page to rate the video and subscribe if you're watching this there now.
We've got a lot of stuff up there. We've all contributed various different kinds of articles and reviews.
And also, be sure to friend each one of us on Facebook. We're all there individually, and we'd love to hear your comments.
Maybe not so much the emails.
The emails are fine, but no IMs, please.
Yeah, no IMs, because we'd like to just do our business, and we love hearing from our fans.
But we're busy people.
Just not all the fucking time.
Please,
that's all.
We need some space.
Yeah.
We're very tired. The show takes a lot up from us. All right, well, let's get into this anyway. We're talking about the Terminator films, and today we're going to start off with, of course, the Jim Cameron's second film. This is not, everyone thinks it's his first, but it's not. His first film was a low-budget sequel to the 1979 Piranha by Joe Dante. This one actually really has nothing to do with the other film in the series other than Killer Piranha. It's called Piranha 2: The Spawning. And as Jim Cameron best described it, it's the best flying fish movie ever made. And I love Leonard Maltin's quote, "You have to be psychic to detect that Jim Cameron had any talent to make this before he made the Terminator."
And it's seminal because it was the first of a fruitful partnership with a certain actor.
Yes, Lance Henriksen.
Lance Henriksen.
Let's start on that. Jim Cameron has a very interesting story where he said he was actually, I believe, filming Piranha 2. And he actually
Jim Cameron was also the protege of very famous filmmaker Roger Corman. Yeah.
He did special. Let's give a little history on him. He was special effects man at New World Pictures. He did special effects for Escape from New York. He did. He got discovered on Galaxy of Terror. A producer was visiting the set and saw there was this scene where you see this arm, a severed arm, and there are maggots on it, and they weren't moving. So Jim Cameron came up on the fly and just made a little thing where he actually electrocuted them and made them move. And the person was really impressed with his ingenuity, and that's what got him Piranha 2. But as he was filming Piranha 2, he said he had a weird, vivid dream where he just woke up in the middle of the night sweating, and he had this image of the Terminator. And he drew this picture of this machine-like creature, and the person he had in mind to play the character was Lance Henriksen. Mm-hmm. In fact, there's a very cool sketch, and Lance Henriksen said they went into a lot of meetings. Henriksen, sorry. Went into script meetings, and he actually put down aluminum foil in his teeth.
He put foil on his teeth and
jumped on the table.
There.
And they said he scared the shit out of people because Lance is a really intense actor. Like I said, he went to the same school as Al Pacino. They were best friends and they really are really intense method actors. Unfortunately, Lance was not really a name to sell a movie.
He wasn't a name at all.
Not at all. He was basically a character actor, but an excellent actor. He's one of my favorite character actors.
And he's still in the Terminator.
Yeah, he is in the Terminator. He was given a small role, but the film...
Boy, blink and you'll miss him.
Yeah, well, he has a decent-sized role. Well, the film, somehow the script wound up in the hands of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who just came off the success of the Conan series.
Yeah, but before Schwarzenegger, you know who the studio pitched?
I know.
Orenthal James Simpson. He
as
was
the Terminator.
Going to be the Terminator.
And they wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger to play the
hero.
Kyle Reese
he wanted to play the hero.
But Arnold read the script and says, "I want to play the Terminator."
Well, also Cameron told the studio, "There's no way in hell we're going to have O.J. Simpson as the Terminator. This has got to be a joke."
Yeah, it was an independent film. Actually, it was produced by Hemdale Pictures.
I didn't know the O.J. Simpson story.
That's true. That is true. Well, he did kill somebody else. He terminated his wife, but not the other people. But
you forgot Ron.
Yeah, and he also terminated Ron Goldman. So I guess he really was a Terminator, but in real life. But no, this one, Arnold read the script and said, "I want to play this part." And Jim Cameron at first was like a little taken back by that because he didn't want him to play that part. He wanted him to play the Kyle Reese part that Michael Biehn became for, because he said that the person he had in mind for Terminator was a person who could just blend in with the crowd and be like a regular human being. Actually, if you look at Terminator 2, the Robert Patrick character is the person he had involved, just a regular-looking guy, but someone very powerful. And he said Arnold changed that because the minute you look at him, he's very physical and he's a tough-looking dude. And the film was shot for about $6 million. It is a low-budget movie, but it's very ingenious, some of the special effects that were pulled off.
You do not see the cheapness on film with this.
You do in some scenes, but the
stop
film
motion stuff.
The film
where he's
stock.
just a skeleton.
That's true.
That's the only scene where it seems to. But I got to say, with the exception of that, I'm still blown away
Gritty
by the scenes from the future.
They're brilliant.
Oh, all those models.
Yeah, some of the best use. Wow, the model use.
The rear screen projection best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You know,
Amazing.
first thing I agree with Eric on that 100%. The visions of the future, the models, all that work. But let's give. I want to give amazing amount of credit to James Cameron in the script. Because the script is something.
And his wife co-wrote it too. Don't forget.
Well, yeah, Gail Ann Hurd, one of the ex-wife. One of the big influences, though, that James Cameron has went on and said that part of that movie is based on an Outer Limits.
Demon with a glass hand.
And Harlan Ellison actually sued.
Yeah.
And because you know him, he's sue happy. And actually, he sued Jim Cameron for said he ripped off his work and he made them give him an acknowledgement in all new prints. And it is very similar to that soldier story. It's also similar to, of course, we're talking about Colossus, the Forbin project in terms of the Skynet idea. It has it's basically a lot of ideas recycled.
Yeah, exactly.
But a brilliant recycled.
It's all right if you
certain
reuse
degree,
ideas.
Westworld.
Yeah, I think
well, Yul Brynner is a great template for what the Terminator would be.
I think this is one of the people don't give this. They think it's a science fiction film. I don't think it's really a science fiction. I think it's a horror film. This is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. When I was a kid, in fact, on our next show, which will be coming up soon, films that fucked you up as a kid, I'll get more into it. Why? This film is very creepy, and it has a very dark humor in it. And it does have some very funny stuff in it, but it's very black, and I'm talking dark, dark humor.
And that's why it's such a successful film.
That's why I think it perhaps could be Jim Cameron's best film, because it's the one where he really had to be creative on a low budget. In fact, there's a scene in this movie which, to this day, I did not know was a model until it was told to me. It's a scene where the tanker blows up. You know that very famous scene where they put the thing? Yeah. That was actually a model. Yeah. I still can't believe it because if you see the way it's done in the movie, it looks like a real tanker.
And Kyle Reese was actually put in James Cameron's suit coat bag instead of a real body bag because they couldn't afford a body bag. Yeah. So they had to get James Cameron's suit coat bag out of his trunk and put him.
That was actually a last minute reshoot on the movie.
Yeah, because they were so
strapped for cash.
Yes, strapped for cash. They could not get that. This is, of course, all on the DVD extras.
Arnold even talks about how he just came with a couple of gym bags and was such a low budget shoot. They just at the end they were out of money. He just did it because he really believed in the movie and he came in and filmed a few scenes. And at the end, the very famous scene with Sarah Connor at the end. They filmed that without permits, and they said it was for a school project, and that's how they got those shots, which I thought was very ingenious.
Well, I would say also the unsung hero of the success of this film actually is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he was canny enough to know that he would be better suited for the part of the Terminator than a hero.
He has very few lines of dialogue in this film. I mean, maybe they said 128 words, I think was about it. Yes, no, and I mean, there's some very, like I said, funny scenes where he's looking for a reply. Fuck you, asshole.
No, what my favorite scene with his dialogue in it is where he goes into the gun shop and starts asking for
Dick Miller.
Yeah, he starts asking for all the weapons, and one of the weapons was a plasma rifle. The guy's like, I don't have that stuff. Where did you get that list from?
Well, that's just what you see. And he goes, I'll take it. You can't load this. Wrong. Great scene.
But let's also include in this film.
I would say the scene that had the most impact on me is the police station scene, because at that point you realize there's no stopping this guy.
Yeah, but let's also not overlook wonderful, wonderful performances by Linda Hamilton and Michael Biehn.
And Michael Biehn is a sad that he never really
fellow
went on
Nebraskan Michael Biehn.
He never really went on to do more. I feel bad.
Well, he got great breaks by Cameron, and then after that he couldn't get into anything else. It's
a shame because he's a terrific actor and he's very good in this. I thought, like I said, the whole movie, everybody is giving their best, and it really shows on screen. And that is why I'm going to say this is Jim Cameron's probably his best film. I mean, there's films that, of course, get more acclaim. In fact, the next one, which we'll talk about,
I say his second best, but that's just me.
I think it's just brilliant on all levels. I mean, especially the stuff in the future. The future is the most unique vision of the future I have seen at that time. Basically a post-apocalyptic wasteland with those hunter killers. And I mean, it was shot.
Mountains of skulls.
Yeah, shot for no money. And when you see the other sequels, which we'll get into with all the money, it's not
where
half
Cameron is a genius, and he has a reputation for being a bit of a megalomaniac.
He's a perfectionist.
In terms of he's a perfectionist, but it works for him because of his attention to detail. That's what that film's about, is the attention to detail. Whether it's a $6 million budget or a $50 million budget, every penny shows. On a James Cameron film.
In the writing, even in the script insertions, because even just with the writing and the dialogue, especially what Kyle Reese is telling Linda Hamilton's characters, like talking about how they perfected the T-100 and how they grew the skin and
This
farms.
is where I agree with you in saying that Terminator may be his best film because it's also his best written film, whereas I think his films later on got a little...
He really polished his script. I mean, there was a lot of polishing.
It has nothing to do with anything, but I think Aliens is his best, but that's just mine.
Well, I mean...
I think Aliens is brilliant too, but I think if you take
equally.
it like what he did with the budget, the creativity, the impact that film had...
and don't forget, he was picking up where Alien already established the world that he was dealing with. He had established that futuristic world. This is him establishing a complete new, feel and a vision of the future.
But sometimes it's easy to fall flat on your face when you're dealing with somebody else's baby.
Very true. But
and I don't disagree with you on the Aliens thing.
It's a great movie.
It's one
a
of the best
masterpiece.
sequels ever made.
It's the Godfather 2 of horror sequels or science fiction sequels.
Let's go on to
the last thing we have to give 2 more things credit. Bad Fidel's score, which is very memorable, which he said he patterned after a heartbeat, and also. We have to give credit. We have to give credit. We must give credit to the wonderful Stan Winston for his design of the exoskeleton with Jim Cameron. 7 years later, Jim Cameron, well, actually, it took 7 years for a sequel to reach the screen. Actually, the Terminator, when it came out in 1984, it was a moderate hit. It made about $37 million, which was pretty good on a $6 million investment. And during the time, it became a very big hit on video and on cable. I mean, it was on constantly. People were talking about this film. And then Jim Cameron made a little film called Aliens, which became him a superstar director in terms of the genre community and actually gave him a lot of power and clout where people were really excited by what he was doing next.
Well, with both Terminator and Aliens, he was the guy that took 2 big genres, big budget action, science fiction, and just blended them together, and then we got Terminator 2 out of that.
Yeah, that's basically, I would say Terminator 2 is basically his version of Aliens with the Terminator in it. This one's more of an action film than it is a horror film. I think the first one's more of a horror thriller. I really do. I'm really serious about it.
I see what you're saying. I think it's a grimmer. Terminator is the grim film.
It's dark.
And T2
much
is more upbeat, action oriented, even though it's not exactly.
We can all agree on this. Terminator is definitely
Jim
Cameron's darkest film. Definitely his darkest film. It's very bleak, and actually. But anyway, it took him a long time to come up with he wrote a script with his friend from years ago, who he actually was friendly with for years, with William Wisher, and they wrote the sequel to Terminator, which was Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which went on to become, I believe at the time, the highest grossing R-rated film in history. It has been since surpassed. But it was, I remember standing in line for this. It came on July 4th, 1991. And this one actually took a lot of the techniques that he was able to use in the film called The Abyss with the morphing technology. It really does. I actually prefer the cut version, the theatrical version, to the uncut version.
Ha!
Which actually,
here we go, an exception to the rule.
I feel it's padded out. There's some good scenes in the uncut version.
I agree with you because I've seen the uncut version too.
There's some good scenes in it, but I like them as supplements, as extras. I like that's a good scene, but it doesn't fit in the narrative flow of the film. I'm going to say, too, the budget really shows on screen. It was, at the time, I believe, the highest budgeted film of all time, which was over $100 million. And the money is really on the screen. I also like the performance by Robert Patrick as the T-1000. I think he plays it just right. And he does a good job of...
The late critic Gene Siskel had a wonderful comment about Robert Patrick. He said he reminded him of a really mean waiter.
Actually, he does. Actually, that's a pretty good analogy.
I don't see that at all. I think T2 is a very, very good sequel. I want to say it's one of the best sequels ever made. There's issues. I think Edward Furlong gets kind of annoying.
Yeah,
after a while.
When you get older, you really notice how bad he is.
And sometimes his performance isn't consistent with the kind of character he's supposed to be. But
yes.
Some of the best damn action ever put on film.
In fact, I like that it goes a different direction than the original Terminator, where you have an actual Terminator working with them. Then again, you know what I'm saying?
See, and that's what I didn't like. I mean, I thought it was okay. You guys like it a lot more than I did.
I don't like it as much as I used to.
I just didn't. My friend was so blown away by it, and he saw it the first night, and then I wanted to go see it really bad. So on the third night it was out, I went with him. He just wanted to go see it again because he loved it so much, and I had like a good time with it. I did, but I didn't think there was. I missed that grimness. I missed that relentless dystopian future vision that we had. And it seemed like almost, and it's funny that it was an R film. It felt really family friendly, actually. I mean, the way I felt. And I didn't really see any of the R-rated stuff from it. I mean, there was the violence of him killing the
guy with the milk carton.
the guy that does commercials and I forget.
Barkley,
Yeah, yeah. He
Xander.
you know, he got the sword through it, the sword through his head.
I guess where you're coming from is a disappointment that it wasn't the first Terminator film, and I never expected it to be the first Terminator
No,
film. I expected it to be like a different kind of take, and and on that level, that's why I enjoyed it, because there's some great stuff in there, like that whole thing when they finally confront the guy who would develop the technology that would become Skynet, and his whole role in the whole. Joe Morton. Yeah.
Joe Morton. I'm sorry.
Not
baseball player.
And I
Joe
thought he was a
Morton.
very interesting, surprisingly sympathetic character.
Well, what I did like too.
Yeah, that wasn't bad.
You
But
know?
the only vision of the future we got was the nuclear blast.
I thought that was very
And
cool.
I thought Linda Hamilton was a little too beefed up for the role. I
Well,
mean, she was a little too
The problem is that he just wrote, like I said, Aliens, and he was making her into a Sigourney
Ripley.
Weaver
We
character.
made her into Ripley.
Yeah.
But, you know, I liked Linda Hamilton in that part. I thought it was an interesting second take on that character. you
Well, I like
know?
that she wasn't the victim anymore. I
Right.
like that she really went nuts. She was psychotic, not like Ripley was just a tough woman. Sarah Connor was more crazy. She was psychotic.
Another thing that
Bordering on
I mean, I like the ending. I like that battle. But for some reason, it seemed so cheap to me that you had a wonderful villain in Schwarzenegger, and you're like, oh, let's turn it on the head and make it him a good guy. And I thought, well, have we reduced to the fact that Schwarzenegger can't play a bad guy anymore?
No, I never
Because he's
thought that at
become
all.
so
I actually
popular?
thought that was a nice subversive
Well, that's
take
what
on
I
it
thought.
by making him now be the protagonist going up against an even better, newer
See,
model.
He was an obsolete model.
But see, the thing is I felt it was like a cheap Hollywood stunt.
What I think is most interesting is that if you look at the first Terminator DVD, there's a lot of cut scenes that were cut out of the original Terminator, which he reincorporated into the sequel, like, you know, where he talks to Kyle about stopping Skynet, and they make a plan to go to Skynet and stop, to play Cyberdyne systems. And it was really interesting to see those concepts re-explored in the sequel. I mean, that's probably the best thing in the world, is to watch the original Terminator DVD, just to see these scenes, which you'll actually see reenacted with different characters in the Terminator 2. Overall, I think it's a little polished. I liked it a lot more. When I first saw it, I thought it was better than the original, but as I got older, I got to realize the original had a lot more of an edge to it, and
I
it's
agree.
a stronger film.
It is funny to criticize a film for being polished, but I also have to say it's a little too polished.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I loved it the first time I saw it, and as I revisit it, I'm not as much in love with it.
I'm
as
not
I
as much
used
in
to
love
be.
with it either.
It's
not
a
as
well-made film.
It's a good
technically,
sequel.
it's a very accomplished film.
It's an interesting villain too. Robert Patrick's T-1000, I guess.
Well, as Jim Cameron said, when he made this film, originally he said that he was going to make another sequel to Terminator, and then years later he said Terminator 2 was the end of the series for him as far as he was concerned. He didn't
Until
wanna
I
do
get a
it.
big paycheck.
Well, he didn't want to do it, and then as part of the divorce settlement with Linda Hamilton, because he got married to her during the making, she inherited Terminator rights, and then she sold them off to another company, and they got Arnold to come back for a record $25 million because his career was basically he made a lot of flops in a row, so he decided to come back to the film that made him the most success, which was Terminator. It was like about, I think, 11 years later. And they got a director, Jonathan Mostow, who made the actually very underrated and terrific Breakdown. When I first heard about it, I was I was very skeptical whether this film would succeed or fail. And I was happy to say it succeeded my expectations. It was better than I thought it was going to be, but it's not a great film. I think it's a very good movie, but it's far removed from the world that Jim Cameron created with the humor. Some of it is the humor in it. It's just so ridiculous. It's just, as Jim Cameron said to Arnold, he goes, "You make this film on your own. You own that character as much as I do. You know it as well as I do. Do it." And there's scenes in there where you see Arnold and you go, "Arnold, you should know better. You said you created this character." Like, the scene where he goes into the strip bar and he goes, "Talk to the hand." The humor, and he puts on the glasses, and then there are those gay, glasses. Stuff like that I think is terrible, but the action scenes are superbly handled.
And I think overall the script is very good.
The script is pretty damn good.
And it returns back to that grimness that you wanted in the first place.
Yes, I do agree with you on that.
I agree with both of you. I don't think it's as good as the first two films, nor can it be. But
No.
at the same time, I was surprised by how much I liked it.
Nick
It
Stahl,
was a huge improvement over Ever Feel Long.
Well, I was actually surprised how much I liked him because I'm hit or miss with Nick Stahl.
Yeah.
Depending
Mostly
upon
miss
the role,
on my part. I was never
depending upon the
crazy
role,
about
he could
him.
be completely wrong casted, or sometimes he's like really good in something.
Well, Ever
but-
Feel Long was having a drug problem, and supposedly Arnold Schwarzenegger said, "If you can clean up your act, you can come back and make the movie. If not, we're getting somebody else." And of course, he didn't clean up his act, and thankfully,
But at
it
the
helped
same
the movie.
time,
And
I
Nick Stahl
didn't-
is much better.
I didn't really think Claire Danes really brought anything to that part.
There's
Well,
some-
she wasn't asked to do much.
No,
Yeah,
she has
it
some
was-
very clunky dialogue. There's a scene where they're running for a plane, and at the end, he goes, "That's my dad's plane. I'm trained to fly on it." And it's just like, Oh God, that is like the lamest excuse on how to fit that into the plot.
But I will say that I really like the ending quite a bit. I mean, just really a no hope thing. It's like you're in this bunker, but might as well make good of it because the whole world's getting nuked.
What do we think of the Terminator villainess?
I thought she was
I thought
okay.
she was all
I thought it
right.
was more stunt casting to give it to a woman. And
That's where I was going to say, when you made your criticism about Terminator 2 being about, oh, you thought it was kind of cheap to make him become the hero. Or I thought it was kind of like obvious. Well, we've already done, Schwarzenegger was a villain in the first one, then we made him a good guy in the second one, but then we came up with a better, or like a more improved, technically, Terminator second one. Where can we go with the third one? Let's make it a woman. You know, and it seemed a little kind of...
And I didn't like the design of the Terminator.
And she was good.
I liked her, though. I liked
She was
her.
very good in the movie. Christina Loken.
Christina Loken, who
She
really
was
hasn't done much
very,
since.
very beautiful woman, but I didn't
The only
like
thing she's
Christina or
done-
Kristana?
Kristana, I believe. Sorry,
The only thing
Kristana
she's done since?
Blood Rain. She had all these weapons where she could actually morph like the Terminator, like the T-1000, but she could make weapons and stuff, and they don't explain this. In the movie, the first one, he goes, you mean he could turn into a bomb and destroy? No, that has complex moving parts and chemicals. He can just make knives and stabbing weapons. In this one, she has guns, she has all these other things, and they don't explain that. And I think that's a big, major flaw. But this one, like I said, I got to say one thing. It has one of the best action scenes in the entire series, which is the scene with Arnold on the crane. And I think that was terrific, where they destroy the building with the crane. And I think the action scenes are excellent. And like I said, I love the bleakness, especially the ending, which really does come as a shock. I really did like that. And I love seeing the early Terminator models, like the T-10 and all that at the end, and the Skynet. And I love how they actually created Skynet.
I just like that there was that inevitability that you didn't see coming.
Yeah,
like no matter what you think you're going to do, it's going to happen.
It's happening no matter what, and I like that quite a bit. And as a sequel, it was a very good sequel, even though Jim Cameron didn't come back. I thought it was a very good job.
And Jonathan Mostow did a pretty damn good job as a guy that could direct action.
With the exception of the humor, I think he did. It's an excellent entry in the series. Well, let's get on to the next one. And this one, I gotta say, I had some high hopes for it because I love Christian Bale. He's my favorite actor working today. But the film is absolutely just a huge disappointment. The film is Terminator Salvation, and I knew the kiss of death of the film when I saw the PG-13 rating on it, because the other films are all R-rated, and they made enough money. So why would you have to re-rate this and make it PG-13? Also, you had McG, who I call the fast food director. His name, as I said, should be McDLT, because he really is a junk food filmmaker. He really is. I'm sorry. I saw this film, and I wasn't trying to be. I'm just telling the truth. I really think he's a junk food filmmaker. He really is. I saw this film, and to be fair, from what I understand, he had a lot of problems with the script, because originally Christian Bale was supposed to play the heroic lead, the Sam Worthington part. But he goes, I don't want to play this. I want to play John Connor. And John Connor's part was supposed to be a very short part, but they decided to rewrite it and beef up his role. And when they did this, it completely changed the dynamic of the script, and it's just very boring. I mean, you have Anton Yelchin play a young Kyle Reese, which I think is kind of cool, where they, you have to see the character as a youngster, God,
I couldn't disagree with you more on this. I think you're like wrong on a bunch of different... Once again, I had no expectations for this film. I thought, this is going to be part of that dystopian future that we see. And I thought, it could be kind of cool. And Eric and I actually saw it together just kind of on a whim, like, let's go check it out. And I got to admit, I really enjoyed myself. I thought it was a good popcorn flick. Now, does it take the same themes? I mean, does it hit you like the first one does? No, I don't think so. But it took me into that dystopian world that I wanted to see in the first place. I mean, I love the idea of Sam Worthington's character yelling at that, what was it, a T-600? And the T-600 just like turns around and just starts shooting. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? He has no idea. I like that whole theme of the cyborg who doesn't know he's a cyborg.
That's stupid, though. There's some stupid fucking things in this movie.
I disagree.
I
couldn't disagree with you
They
more.
have
You're
Kyle
wrong.
Reese in custody.
I
and
agree.
Kill him.
This is my turn.
Yes.
I saw it with Mike, and I freely admit this. I even said to Mike, I liked the film better than I thought I was going to like it. But as I stepped away from film and thought about it more, there's things I couldn't put my finger on initially as to, but wait a minute. When I think about our problems I have with it, I think visually it's very compelling.
I disagree with
I
you.
think visually it works.
Highly disagree.
I think there's some great sequences in this film. Biggest problem, you're doing a film about the Terminator series, and you don't make John Connor the interesting character. That's problem number one. Two,
I think
the
I
Sam
kind of agree.
Worthington
I kind of
character
agree
is
with
an
that.
interesting conceit. It's an interesting concept. But it was like, I agree, it does feel like they unnecessarily beefed up the John Connor character so Christian Bale could do that because there's some unnecessary things. And the biggest problem I have, and it finally hit me, it's like, why didn't they just fucking kill the Kyle Reese character?
They had him in custody the whole time.
He's the one, he's the reason why John Connor exists. So why didn't they just kill him? And that would have ended the whole thing.
Yeah,
That is
bit of a plot
And
hole.
let me tell you
It's a
another
huge plot hole.
That's like the dumbest
that was
thing
cute.
I've ever seen. And let me give you another thing I didn't like. The first movie. This movie looks like Mad Max. What I liked is, remember how you see the dark world with all those like neon lights and shit? You don't see it in this one. It's just like it looks like Mad Max, and that's why.
Well,
I really
no,
felt
a lot of that, the first apocalyptic scenes, those were mostly underground. Remember?
No, during like remember they're driving the car, and they're they're going over the skulls.
Yeah, there was like
and
a lot
stuff.
of like permanent dark skies
Right,
and stuff
right.
like that.
Because there was no sun
because of
from
all the mechanical production that was going on.
That's why I love that. I thought that was, and then you see it all in daylight, and that completely feels.
I
so
see you on that
detached
point,
from his
and that
world.
point didn't even occur to me until you just brought up.
But
However,
it-
I didn't mind whatever vision they were showing on the screen.
It wasn't exactly sunny skies, though. I mean, it was still a grim.
It was like a desert. It was
And
a
I think the
desert.
Sam Worthington character was a fascinating character, but it should have been in the sequel to this film, not this particular.
Let me give you another thing I hate about this film. What makes me upset? Okay, and this is, I think you would agree with me. This film rips off one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's biggest hits, and if you don't agree with me on this one, I'll be shocked. Hey, are you guys familiar with the film Total Recall? Because Sam Worthington's character is no more than Douglas Quaid, a man who has no memory,
No, that's
going
no,
in
you're
there
full of
and
shit.
sit.
No,
he
seriously.
is shipped
Yeah,
through the
you're full of
motion.
shit on that.
No,
And I'll tell you
no,
what.
absolutely not. No,
that's wrong.
No,
Actually, I would say that this is actually more of a throwback to the original supposed source for the Terminator's Demon with a Glass Hand, because in Demon with a Glass Hand, a character
I'll
realizes
give you on that.
he's
Yeah,
an
because
android.
But that's also like
exactly.
Total Recall. It's based on the same type of character. But they sent him out there as a decoy, has no memory, so he's able to gain the human
Yeah,
trust.
but no,
and all that.
I think,
that's a
I mean, I can
reach.
see what you're saying,
That's
but
a
it's kind of a stretch, because the Arnold Schwarzenegger character in Total Recall is a human being who has no memory being a super spy, and that's a whole other discussion.
But I mean, that's how they get it. It's a person with no
but this-
memory who's able to
No.
infiltrate.
No, this guy
human
has
race.
a memory of who he used to be.
Right.
An ex-con.
Right.
He just doesn't remember. He doesn't realize he's artificial at that point.
That's exactly what I mean.
But he's not completely artificial. He is essentially a cyborg. He still retains his
Right.
humanity. He's not like a true Terminator in the sense that
Right.
they're a robot with simply flesh covering.
He's a
them.
cyborg.
Yeah,
I will
he's-
say though, I did like one thing that I thought was pretty cool. I thought it was actually very well handled, even though it wasn't perfect. The reappearance of the Arnold Schwarzenegger character. I thought the
That was
CGI was
fantastic.
I thought
really
it was
good.
actually very well done.
I thought it was very well done.
Surprisingly
it
well
really
done,
looked like
actually.
him
I was
because
trying to figure out how the hell they did that.
Kind of, we were talking to Star Wars film how Darth Vader like revisit why didn't Darth Vader recognize R2D2 and C3PO if he worked on them when he was a kid?
Yeah.
Well, there's a similar problem here too. John Connor is fighting what's going to be the latest Terminator model, the Arnold Schwarzenegger cameo, and yet supposedly
doesn't
in the very
have to.
first Terminator, one of the famous flash forward scenes, like what happened in the future, is that this Terminator takes them all by surprise because they had no idea they created a Terminator that can look human. So obviously that would have tipped them off, and therefore that scene in the first one could have never have happened.
But the film, I promise too, everybody has perfect teeth in the film. They have permed hair. They have wonderful makeup. They don't look like fucking street homeless people like they did in the original. Come on, give me that.
Well, wait till you see the road.
I think so, yeah. I agree with you.
It was a film that I really thought was pretty true to the Terminator thing. Yeah, there were plot holes. I agree with you on that. But did that make it a bad film? No. Matter of fact, I even liked it better than Terminator 2 because I thought it was more. Now, will I change my opinion in a couple of years to see
think
how
you
this
will.
ages? I don't know. Oh, well, I don't know.
I
think
we'll
I
talk
might
about
just
this
like
later.
it more just to spite you.
Okay, do
Mommy
that.
and Daddy
Because
are
you were
fighting.
so
Well, as I
wrong.
said, my problem, like I said, I think the look. I really wanted to see that black sky with a neon, like you see with the hunter killers. And
So
stuff.
you're mad that Terminator 4 didn't have a black sky. That's a
no,
ridiculous argument.
The visual look. It didn't follow Jim Cameron's
No, I
original
understand.
blueprint.
I think it's a matter of. I think the argument here is basically subjectivity. I mean,
I think
that
it's really
Kyle
good.
Reese
So I think you should
subplot.
see it. It's like a great popcorn flick.
even though technically
Edwin's not getting the last
the
word on this.
machinery,
No way.
the villainous machinery weren't smart enough to just kill Kyle Reese.
That's really stupid. Admit that. Come on. And
It's
the
a- it's
perm
a
hair,
hole.
everyone has
It's a-
perfect teeth.
You have a lot of problems with perms.
Major
But they
plot
had
hole.
perfect teeth. These are people who are supposed to be living in nuclear waste and garbage and be mutated. And watch it and judge for yourself. Just came on DVD this week. All right, well, that concludes our show on the Terminator series. You can feel free to run credits at any time. And thank you very much for tuning in. And be sure to subscribe to YouTube and check out our channels. Thank you very much. Well, that was a good one because I really just felt so strong on that the salvation. I was really looking. I mean, and the thing too is,
I can't believe you were so excited. I mean, I wanted to go see it just for like, let's go see it. And I was pleasantly pleased. I got to pee.
Okay, go ahead. And we're still rolling. Mike will be back.
This is
Pee break. Pee break. We've had this before. If you want to look at our shows, I mean, Mike does this all the time. He got to drain the lizard.
Stop rolling.
Why haven't stopped rolling yet? Well, bye-bye.
He's going to milk it for what it's worth.
Water the plants. That was actually a good one. I really like that.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Turned out to be good.